morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Rejuvelation. Today is Saturday, February 10th. Today's episode will be about health and natural law and human consciousness. I've done a little bit of studying in my time. Not just for this episode, but in general. And I realized that I don't know much. I realized that I have key points, things that I want to talk about, things that I can touch on, but not explain in too much depth. What this has helped me do is realize my role here, which is just an aggregator of information. Not to truly be able to relay the ultimateness of the information itself. That is your task. My task is to simply share the dots and explain them as is necessary. So, in talking about health, the clarity that I want to bring to that is health is not just how your body is, what you're able to do or what you're not able to do. Health is an all-around thing. It's a complete essence. So not only is it your physical, but it's your emotional, and it's your mental and spiritual health. So that's four: mental, spiritual, physical, emotional. But then there's also your relationship health, how you are with other people, which is a key component. Of course, you can be a monk in some secluded area, a total hermit, and you can be at peace, and all those four things can be great. And your relationships, let's say that you transcended the need to have interactions with people and you're just out there in your meditative state. I won't refer to that as blissing out. If you have a reason to be out there in total solitude and listening, then good. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a huge difference in my mind between someone who lives in the world and decides to seclude themselves from action and intention and only goes into a thought prayer mode where they believe themselves to be meditating the world to greater good, which there is that possibility. People can do that, but the greatest good to be done is to say no to what's wrong, to what's incorrect, to what's immoral, and to stop doing those things. Because ultimately, what we want to get at here is that the greatest thing that you can do is stop doing what you're doing that's wrong. Because people don't want to be told what to do and what not to do. But ultimately, isn't it the easiest thing to stop doing certain things instead of to try to do other things? Perhaps not. Ultimately, it's up to the individual. So, the first thing that I want to touch on today is just a list of things to think about, okay? So, let's talk about what we're eating, what we're putting into our bodies. Now, the majority of people in America eat what's called the SAD, the Standard American Diet. And this includes a tremendous amount of processed foods. This includes a tremendous amount of artificial foods. It's a strange just to call them foods because they're not foods. They're food-like substances and that's even a stretch. They're food-like toxins that mimic food or what has been accepted or programmed um, to be food. A good example of that is fast food, or junk food as it's more aptly known. So junk food is highly addictive. It contains very little, if any, actual nutrients. And the more you eat this type of thing, your body becomes desperate for nutrition. And so every time you eat a meal like this, it may fill you up with the heavy carbs and the heaviness of it, because most of the time it includes a lot of wheat and grains and just heavy foods that take a lot of heavy substances that take a long time to digest. So as soon as you're done digesting it, your food is your body is immediately craving more, because not only because of the addictive substances, but because you didn't actually get anything from that thing, those things that you ate. So this just depletes the body more and more and more and more and more and more. And what comes to mind is people will be saying, well, I see people all the time that got big bellies, or they're well fed. These people are not well fed. These people are well filled, not well fed. Their body cannot utilize what they're eating, so it stores it. Since there's a tremendous amount of sugar in the sad diet situation, I should say. The sad situation is that the sugar is what transfers mostly to fat. So when people get all in opposition to fat, which is totally incorrect, fat is one of the most necessary things for the human body and does not translate to fat on you. It translates to your thinking, to many of the aspects of your body working correctly. So people have been brainwashed into thinking all fat is bad and that you need to avoid it at all costs. But they've been trained also to think sugar is good, and that, or maybe not so much sugar is good, but it's in everything. And, oh, I have a sweet tooth. No, I have a cocaine fang for sugar. Need to dip it into a full vessel of pure strychnine corn syrup, which is most definitely genetically modified. And if anybody believes that genetically modified foods are in any way safe, I highly suggest the film Genetic Roulette, which, I mean, it just spells it all out. You are basically, there are 6 bullets in the gun, and there's 6 chambers, 6 bullets, and you're pulling the trigger. It's just a delayed effect. You just don't know when that bullet came out, and it's like this far away from you. The bullet is slowly coming towards you, and you don't actually realize when or if it will hit, but it will hit. Because even if by some miracle the genetically modified foods did work and were actually usable and incorporatable within us, the people who make these things do not have health and wealth in the interest of those that they put on these genetically modified foods. They're not interested in keeping people happy and healthy, because the same people that make the genetically modified foods are the same people who have huge investments in the pharmaceutical companies and the medical establishment, in the major central banks, who all work for the same people ultimately, which is the Illuminati families, the Merovingians, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Queen of England, the royal families of the world. These people who have been part of the dark occult since day one. Now, that's not to say that all royal families everywhere are a part of it, but they were the ones that were first targeted because they had all the wealth and the power, and they were the ones that were the most disconnected from nature, were the most disconnected from reality. And so they were the ones that were easily swept into the power of the darkness and of the fear and of the control. And they were already programmed to believe that they were well above and beyond everyone else. So when someone came along and said, listen, let's just use them all and let's corrupt them even more, and then so that we gain more power, it wasn't a hard step. It wasn't a big jump for the elite of the world in all times. But putting that aside for a second, so GMOs cannot be trusted, and you are literally playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun with a time delay. So for those of you who are dieting, there's a huge difference between dieting and being on a good diet. Because a good diet does not change. A good diet is a lifelong thing. Dieting is something that you do when you are no longer happy with the way your body is or the way you are, and you do a short-term fix, a little Band-Aid, which is already wet and is not going to stick, and you just slap it on and say, okay, I'm doing good. I'm on a good diet. And most of the time these diets, these dieting regimens, I should say, are nothing good for you. And the fat that you lose on your body is much less harmful than that fat you put on as soon as you end your diet and then go straight back to the way you were or worse. Because that fat at least had time to strain itself out and release certain chemicals and release the negative things in it. Whereas the fat you put on, it's brand new, it's fresh, it's incorporated all the terrible things from the environment, and that's on you now. And so all the work that your body has been doing as best as it's capable is just erased, and now you're back to an even worse body. So if you're going to be on a dieting regime, it has to be something it's very long term for you to really take on the benefits. So think about it this way. Diet, it says die in the word, okay? You don't want to be on a diet. You want to be on a new lifestyle. You want to be on a new regimen of health, okay? So don't be on a diet. Be on a new regimen. Be on a new way of living. Because ultimately that is what will give you lasting change within you. It'll give you what you truly want, which is health, wealth, and love. Truth, love, and freedom. And these are the things that we should all aspire to want and to infuse in others. If you want to lose weight, though, I mean, the simple thing is eat fewer calories than you burn. That's it. I mean, if you burn 2,000 calories in a day, eat 1,500 calories. You will lose weight. It doesn't matter what you're eating. I mean, it does, but ultimately, when you look at the calories from that standpoint, that's how you're going to lose weight. So you can eat what you want, but the healthier the better. I mean, that's what makes you lose weight faster. And eating things with high water content, such as cucumbers or watermelon or whatever, as long as it's natural, organic, and has high water content, it's gonna help you, because that's what's called structured water. When you eat a watermelon, an organic watermelon, or organic cucumber, you're eating water and the vitamins and minerals within it that have already been structured by the plant, which is completely natural. And that structured water is what incorporates into your body. Okay? I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but our body isn't just made of H2O. It's made of something called H3U2, or H3O2, I should say. And that's structured water. Okay? It's actually been structured in a certain format. So, and there's a scientist here, Dr. Gerald Pollack, who discovered that water in humans and animals and plants is not H2O, but H2O3, which is structured water somewhere between ice and water. honeycombed hexagonal sheets. It's the fourth phase of water. You can get this from vortexed water or from juicing plants or from just eating the plants with high water content. So yeah, that is a great way to revitalize your body. Water that's been running through rivers, that's structured water because it picks up the magnetic fields from the minerals that it actually runs through, and it's picking up all these different elements, and so it's structuring itself with those magnetic fields, and it's picking up the mineralization as it goes through. That's why it's so much more powerful. It's when you take a drink from a spring or from a river, if it's not heavily polluted and toxified, which they all are to some degree at this time, but it would still be better in terms of incorporating that water into the heavy metals and all the toxins aside. If you could purify it in some way right then and there, then that'd be the best. So, almost all of our health problems are a symptom of a poor diet. And not only that, they're a symptom of poor mental health. And, I mean, those go hand in hand, but by mental health, what I'm talking about is your mentality, your outlook on life. What's your worldview like? Are you thinking every day, well, the whole place just needs to burn? I used to have this mentality. I used to be like this. Literally when I was like 15 to 17, or maybe 14 to 16, let's say, my mentality was, human beings are vile, nature is pure. I actually had a shirt printed that said, humans are vile, nature is pure. And I remember going to California Pizza Kitchen one day with my friends, and this is how I actually treated people. It's terrible. You know, I'm glad that those days are over and I'm making amends, believe it. But we were sitting there at California Pizza Kitchen, eating. This is well before I became a vegetarian or vegan. And the waiter came up to our table, and he was a young guy. Maybe he was a little bit older than me, but he was like, "Man, I love this shirt." And I said, "Yeah, it's a great shirt." And then I was like, he's like, "Yeah, you're right, nature is pure. And that's great." And then I was like, "Yeah, humans are vile. That means you." And I just looked at him dead, and he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he walked away, and like, who knows how negatively I affected that guy's life, you know, or just his day, and the people that he interacted with. He's like, "Oh, you know, this guy thinks that I'm just totally vile." And that was the programming that I was under. Like, who's to say exactly how I got that mentality? But I believe that I was under mind control at the time, to have a negative worldview and to believe that somehow either I was not a part of that worldview, that I wasn't vile and all other human beings were, or which is usually the case. That's how they do it with the military in wars. These people aren't human. They're subhuman. The Australians and the Aboriginals, these people are less than human. They're filth, and so they just exterminate them all, or enslave them. It happens over and over again. Or even worse than that is all of humanity is vile, even you. Kill yourself, but before that, kill everyone else, and then yourself. It's a total suicide programming. So these things happen. It's happening. And we need to watch out for this, because it's everywhere. If you really pay attention to the way people are acting to others and to themselves, how they relate, their worldview, it's totally poisoned. It's anathema to life, really. So, yeah, our diets and our mental activity, the way we relate to the world and to ourselves, is what creates our health and wealth. So, the best thing that you can do for this is realize who and what you really are. Contact the inner self, the higher self, whatever that is for you. If it's the soul, if it's just your higher mind, if it's the spirit, if it's just the universe itself, if it's just energy itself, however you want to relate to the higher self, to to the greatest within you. Let's just put, I think that's the most reachable. The greatest within you, the greatest aspect of yourself that you could possibly be. Relate to that. Come within. Seek that. Quiet yourself and listen. Ask for what you want, for what you need, and then quiet yourself. Don't try to continuously communicate with that greater self or the spirit or the highest consciousness. Listen. Quiet yourself and listen. And then get in touch with it. Detach yourself from things that do not serve. Detach yourself from things that only further the suffering in your life. Such as just recently, as I've already said and will continue to say, because this is a really big thing for me. It's a big thing for men, or I should say for boys, or for the masculine aspect, because it's all the masculine aspect is it's mental, it's thought, it's logic, and so video games pull the masculine energy into it because it's all mental. It's all in a hypothetical space, and so men thrive in this environment. And for me, where the masculine thrives in that, because I was very young. I was like 6 years old when I first started playing video games, and I was really into it. Or not so much 6, maybe it was like 7, 8, 9. But I was very young. And so that took up so much of my spiritual essence, so much of my essence, so much of me went into these other worlds. Which it brought me joy, but not to the same degree that, having real joy, real true harmony with the world and with those around me could have brought me. But we're all here for a journey, and the things that we're all learning is useful to ourselves and others if only we will recognize it and communicate it properly. So, but that worldview that I have now, the one that I've gained and that I'm continuing to foster and to nurture, was only possible once I quit video games. It was only possible once I quit smoking. It was only possible when I quit drinking. Because those things were continuous dampers on my consciousness. Continuous dampers. They were escapes. Every beer that I drank, every joint that I smoked, every video game that I played, every minute of it was putting me to sleep. It was keeping me asleep. It was burying the things that needed addressing but weren't being addressed. And so more and more suffering was building up in my life, in my heart, in what made me feel the most. Those things were always coming up. I was always feeling worse and worse and worse. And now that I've escaped those things that were just helping me escape, I've escaped the escapes. The ultimate escape is escaping the escapes, because you're exiting the matrix. And one of them, it's all a matrix. There's matrices within matrices. There's just unlimited boxes, okay? And the more you become aware, the more your consciousness elevates itself through intention and action and thought. Thought, intention, action. That's what this whole show's about. It's the true Trinity, the true unity that makes all the things that you want happen. Without the Trinity, it can't happen, won't happen, unless by someone else's Trinity or a group of people's Trinity, because this is how society works ultimately. There may be an entire group of people who are only within what they contribute to the Trinity is thought. And then there's a whole other group of people who contribute emotion. And then there's a whole other group of people that do the actions. A good example of this would be scientists. and then soldiers, and then whatever care that they link to. So scientists would be mostly in the realm of thought, and then soldiers are mostly in the world of action. And then let's say they all have girlfriends. All these scientists and soldiers have girlfriends or wives, and that's their emotion. That's their intention. So that creates the Trinity for them. Okay? And that's basically the system of the Illuminati. That's the Dark New World Order. Because the soldiers go killing, they go follow orders mindlessly. Even if they have a mind, even if they go into the forces with intention, with conscience, as soon as they become a soldier or a police officer, they don't have a conscience. They can't, until they stop being a police officer or a soldier, they don't have a conscience. They will follow orders blindly. And even if they decide one day or another not to do one thing because it wasn't good for them, they will be reprimanded, and they will either lose their job, or they'll have such a slap on the wrist that they'll say, well, maybe next time I'm just gonna follow orders. I may feel one way or another about it, but I'm gonna follow that order. So that's what creates this Dark New World Order, is that we have a large segment of people who are willing to do anything for a paycheck, okay, they're doing it for their patriotic duty, they're doing it for the for honor or whatever. Okay, take away all the paychecks. Now, police get paid a lot more than the military. All right, so if you took away all the paychecks and said, no, you're just doing this job because you love it and it's for your honor, how many would truly stay? I am betting that over 95% would not do that job. There may be some 5% who are insanely dedicated who would continue to do it. Maybe. And that's a huge, 5% is a huge figure. Okay, that's thousands and thousands of police officers. Hi. Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Can I talk to you for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back. All right. So, along with everything we've been talking about, there's some other things that are really important in everyday health. And they're very simple things to do. They're not expensive. Some of them are free, such as chewing your food. Everything that you put into your body, even liquids, once they hit your lips, once they hit the inside of your mouth starts producing very particular salivas and enzymes to break down those foods and those liquids and to incorporate it into your body. So the more you chew your food, not only are you getting more enzymes and more saliva and more liquids from yourself to incorporate it, you're breaking it down more, and making it far more easy for your stomach to digest it, and then for it to be incorporated in your body. Look at it this way. If you just take a bite of something, chew it enough so that it will go down your throat, just the bare minimum, or just swallow it whole, it's the equivalent of putting crude, unrefined oil into your body. It may be able to use it to some degree, but if you chew it 30 times to where it's basically a liquid, then you're putting high-octane, ready-to-use fuel in your body. And who wouldn't want that? Who would want to be driving around in their car, in their vehicle? This is your vehicle. This is your property, all right? Know this. Get this. This belongs to you, and it doesn't belong to anyone else. You are in charge of this temple as you go through this life. This is yours, okay? If you decide to abuse it, that's on you. But no one else can decide that your body belongs to them. That's called slavery. Anybody that says you can't put this substance in your body, you can't do this to your body, they're making a claim of ownership over you, and they're saying, we are your master, you are our slave. Do not buy into this. This is total and complete bunk. It's bullshit. Do not agree to it. Do not consent to it. Nobody has the right to tell you what to do with your own body. It is your property. Belongs only and forevermore to you. Okay? Can never be given away. You may agree to use your body to help someone else, but no one can ever lay true claim over you and say you belong to me. This doesn't work. It's never been true. It never will be true. So, who wouldn't want to have high octane fuel running through their bodies, which allows them to do everything that they want to do, versus crude oil sludge, which will slow you down and make everything in your life less enjoyable, less functional. So chew your food. It is pivotal. Okay? Another thing that's really important is not to mix too many foods. The greatest advantage that you can give yourself, and I know it's quite bland, all right, and depending on how you do it, but the less ingredients, the better, the more magical it truly is. You know, have you ever eaten just a watermelon, nothing else, and then that's all you have, and then you feel just energized, great, or you just eat a bunch of oranges or a bunch of apples and you just feel great. You don't mix it with anything. That's because not only are you getting only one source of fuel, and then you're getting all the benefits of it, because your digestive system basically only can handle a few things at a time. And if it only has one thing in it, it only has to release one strength of acid or one type of acid to deal with that, okay? And it's even a higher octane fuel. Like if I took a bite of steak and a bite, not that I suggest you do this, but I'm saying this for a point. A bite of steak, a bite of bread, a bite of corn, and a bite of fruit, and I chewed it up to absolute just liquid in my mouth. Sure, that would be better than just taking all those things in and then swallowing them without chewing, but all those things react differently, and all of those things take different times to digest, and all of those things require different strengths of acid. So you're not going to get much out of it. Whereas if you just ate steak and chewed it up to bloody pulp, or if you just ate watermelon, or if you just ate corn, or if you just ate bread, your body can handle it much better if it's in a pure octane form. And I'm just using that octane as a reference back to the analogy of using it for a vehicle of some sort, your vehicle, as opposed to a motor-driven one. So try not to mix things. And if you're going to eat any kind of melon, only eat melon, okay? Because melons digest the quickest, but they also mix with nothing. Nothing else mixes with it, okay? So when you get those fruit bowls with watermelon and strawberries and blueberries and what have you, don't engage in that, okay? Because you're going to get a stomach ache, or it's not going to mix well, and you're not going to get the most out of it. The best fruit salad that you could get is one without any melons, because most of those other ones will be able to mix slightly, but as soon as you add melons in there, watermelon included, then it's going to be bad for your system. So these are all things that you need to get to know. You need to understand, if you truly want to maximize your body's abilities, what mixes, how the body actually works. So one of the mind-controlled aspects in people's consciousness is antibiotics. So people have been conditioned to believe that anytime they get a bug, anytime something happens, give them antibiotics, okay? Antibiotics, a single use, can destroy permanently the biome of your stomach, okay, and your digestive system. Irreversibly, it can do damage to it, all right? It may not destroy it completely, but it can wreak havoc for your entire lifetime. It may never fully be developed because people do not eat things in their natural state, in their raw state. They don't eat probiotic-rich things, and so if they continue with the sad regimen, with the sad way of life, this, standard American diet, which is more and more becoming the GAD, the global, or the SGD, the standard global diet, the ZGD, the SID regimen, then more and more becoming, a global issue, because more and more people are eating the way the Americans are eating because of this globalization effect. California globalization. It's bad. So beware of antibiotics. Antibiotics should be, you're literally on death's door. You're going to die in 30 minutes or half day or something like that. Nothing else has worked. Use the antibiotics. It'll save your life, and from there, after that regimen is done, hit your body with as many probiotics as humanly possible to rebuild that biome. So all this boils down to you being the solution to your own health. You are it. Only you are in charge of what you put in your body. As I've said already, you are your own master. Your body's your property, and you will decide how to treat it. Okay? Period. The end. Good night. Goodbye. That's it. And you need to really know this. You need to. It has to be a song that is you. That when other people see you, they're like, wow, that guy really owns himself. He knows what's going on. He's mastered it, It belongs to him. Like most people see these martial artists or these people who do yoga intensely, and they're not all about the frills and thrills of it, like buying all these yoga pants that are $70 and the special mat, and all these teachers are telling you, oh, that'll make your ass look great. Okay, what you just said, yoga instructor, is the antithesis of yoga. Okay, your ass looking good has zero nada to do with yoga. Believe it. Yoga is nothing about the physical plane. It's not about looking good to others. It's not about being able to show off. It's not about how much you can afford. It's not about the poses that you can do. It's about disconnecting with the ego, from the ego, disconnecting from the systems, and incorporating and listening and being. So, there's a lot of charlatans out there, as there's always been. And for those of you who don't know, a yoga instructor who tells you that your ass is going to look good with this pose is a charlatan. A shaman who sells you swill and doesn't really give you the real thing and just thinks that he can get you high and then sing and dance is a charlatan. A true yoga teacher will show you how to disconnect from this realm, disconnect from all this samsara, all the wheel of suffering, and come back to a state of being. Come back to a state of listening and receiving. Not trying to, reflect out there that I'm so good now, and I'm so great, and my ass is so tight, and all this horse shit that people have been trained to believe is the real thing. It goes back to everything that we're talking about. People are being sold a bag of goods in place of the real thing. Money being an example. Mono, the one, from Latin, and the one God, the one thing, the one source. People are being sold a bag of goods. This green worthless paper that isn't worth the money, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. This is your new God. This is the oneness that you seek. These yoga pants and this yoga pose, that's the ass that you want. That's being sold as the yoga, the oneness, the stillness, the disconnection, and totally in a It all goes back to selling someone subconsciously what they desire, while physically or in actuality giving something to them which will not empower them, which will not enlighten them, which will not give them the freedom that they truly seek, the oneness that they truly desire. This is the way green language works. It plays on the subconscious, and your subconscious picks up on it, and from there you believe that you're getting it because your subconscious is receiving the images, the symbols. But in reality, you're not getting it. You're getting the opposite, and so it's the subversion. It's the corruption of what's pure, being sold as what's pure. Oh, this is it's true sorcery to give someone implanted in their subconscious. This is what you truly desire. This is what all people desire. Oneness, fullness, love, unity. But in actuality, what they're actually getting is the opposite of unity, oneness, love, freedom. They're getting more slavery. They're getting more slave programming, more master-slave mentality, and continuously giving up their power in one form or another. And people will say, oh, well, I've gotten so much good out of yoga and this, that, and the other thing. I don't deny that. But, it's being used subversively. It's being corrupted from its original self. And it's not truly what you need and what you truly desire. So it's a lie, and therefore it's a harm, it's theft, and it's immoral. And people need to wake up to it. They need to wake up to all the little things. Because once they wake up to the little things are the easiest things. It's the bigger things that are tough, such as all authority being a lie. That's a tough one. Money being a lie. That's a tough one. Religion being a lie. Based on truth, but a lie. That's a big one. These are boxes for human consciousness. And until you overcome these boxes, until you truly step over and out of these paradigms of control and to go into unity consciousness, there are going to be really tough control mechanisms in your life to deal with. So that's why it's best to start with the little things. It's best to pull away and listen to the all, not to someone. If you need to listen to someone like me, or like Mark Passio, or like David Icke, or like Alex Jones, or like Kevin Trudeau, or like anybody, whoever you need to listen to truly just step back from your life. And all these people have faults. I have faults. I'll say something that isn't true by accident, or I took someone else's information without fully researching it myself, such as Dan Winter, or some of these, or Jared Pollock. I only briefly looked over the information. As I said, I'm just throwing out the dots. It's not my job to fully look into this. If it strikes a chord with you, then you need to look into it as much as you want to look into it. Okay? But we all have faults, and we don't all have all the time in the world to fully invest ourselves in things. As I said, I'm just an aggregator of information. And there's no such thing as good or bad information. It's all just how you use it. So Alex Jones is a good example. He will not talk about certain subjects, even though a large percentage of his audience really wants him to talk about certain things. Aliens, for example. He's been on the air for more than 20 years, and he didn't even mention or talk about aliens until he went on the Joe Rogan show, and he was pressed about it, because and then people will say, well, just because he doesn't talk about it, he's all automatically a disinfo agent. Or the fact that he defends Israel, and anything that talks about Israel being the problem, he just dismisses it. Oh, now he's an Israeli agent, or he's working for what do they call them? What's the name for the Israeli? I'm gonna think about it in a minute, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. God, I had it too. What was it called? The one where they had the manuscript? The Zionists. That's what it is. He's a Zionist. He's working for the Zionists. Okay? That's like saying all the Jews that were murdered in World War II were Zionists. They were in on it. They wanted to be killed so that their dark designs could be realized. Okay? The people who rule the world do not subscribe to the religions that most people are aware of. Okay? Their design is control. They know very well that the Spirit exists. They know absolutely that God exists. Not the God that most people believe of in accordance with religion, but the ultimate creator, the one that created the rules of this existence, and in whose rules you must abide, else suffer. Natural law is that law. Those are the rules. If you do not follow them, you will suffer. This is why the Illuminati and the dark occult have created legions of people who do their dirty work for them, so that they do not suffer the karmic consequences as much as they would if they did it by themselves. They could never accomplish any of this shit if they didn't get people to do it for them, which is why I harp on the military and the police all the time, because they are the ones that are building the Dark New World Order. They are the foot soldiers. No matter what they think they're doing, and no matter what anybody else thinks about the cops and the police being the ones that are evil, okay? Or they're the ones calling the shots. No, they're not. They're owned. Wholesale owned. They are bought and paid for by these dark occultists who tell them what to do, where to piss, where to shit, what to say, what to think, what to do, without complaint. Because if you complain, you're going to lose your paycheck, you're going to lose your way of life, and then you're going to actually have to start thinking for yourself and engaging in conscious behavior, which is the last thing any true mindless zombie wants to do. They love being told what to do. They love being told where to step, how to step, what to think, what to do. Because ultimately, that's the brain-damaged individual. It's the broken, polluted consciousness that's dwelling in reptilian modality, where it's fight or flight. Okay, pull someone over. Am I gonna drag him out of his car and hit him with a nightstick, or am I just gonna get the money from him, extort it, and then walk away? And then either way, I feel great about it. That's not a conscious being, and eventually it just becomes something they like to do. They're just an enforcer. They're a brutalizer. And those are the true forces of darkness. And anybody that supports them is aiding them. Because, let me tell you, if these police officers' friends and family all of a sudden said, listen, what you're doing is immoral, and we can't support you in it, goodbye, I'm sure a lot of them would go straight into just their job being their whole life, and they'd become even worse. But I'm willing to wager that a large percentage of them would say, wait a minute, my whole family isn't willing to accept the bread that I put on the table because of what I do? Well, wait a minute, what if what I'm doing isn't right? Maybe I should quit. Maybe I should do something else. You know why? Because I kind of love my family more than I love my job, more than I love that paycheck. So, yeah, we may lose the house. We may go hungry for a while, but at least I'll have my family. At least I'll still have their love. At least we'll really be together still. Enough people do that. No more enforcers. No more total injustice and rampant domination. Military too. They all pull away. No more foot soldiers out there murdering people by the millions. You know how many millions? 1 million Iraqi children died. I think it was in the first Gulf War alone. And then this I think it was the head of state or whatever was asked, do you think that the war was worth it? There's 1 million dead Iraqi children. She's like, absolutely. You know, what we're doing here is necessary, and we're spreading freedom and planting the flag right in the oil field so the spout can come out the other end. I mean, freedom, 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 freedom. The robots, they're uncaring, unfeeling automatrons who their heart is just, it's a heart of darkness, and the only care that they see is in dollar signs and control and manipulation, energy transference straight into the vampiric tooth. So walk away from it. Do not support dominators. Do not support these people who would trade their humanity, trade consciousness, trade what's right for a paycheck that was printed out of thin air, that is a store of value accepted as value from nothing, for nothing, except for the extermination of humanity and human kindness and the human spirit. This is what really blows my mind. And if you think that we've somehow jumped radically from the subject of health, you're wrong. This couldn't be more intricately aligned with health. If your world outview is that the military is good, that police are good and necessary, and authority is real and good and necessary, you're brain damaged. You're in a state of fear consciousness. You're a broken individual. And I used to be just like you. I voted for Trump. I was in a total fear state for ISIS. I was in a total fear state for believing all that bunk. And for a while there, I was walking the streets loving the police. Something that I had never done in my whole life. My whole life, and I never had any respect for police officers. Never had any respect for the military. In fact, I never once stood for a football game or a basketball game or any sports events in school. And I had ex-military come up to me and say, how dare you not stand for the flag? You know that I bled in Vietnam for this? And I would just tell them coldly, listen, I understand that you thought what you're doing is right, but those wars were all contrived, and you became a killing machine against innocent women and children, and I have absolutely no respect for you. So either you're going to attack me right now, use violence against me for me knowing what you did was wrong, or you're going to back off. And they were like in a state of paralysis. You know, and I remember this one instance really well, and you could see the struggle in his mind, in his soul, between wanting to kick my ass so badly and, you know, because he couldn't really, because it was a basketball game at the high school, and he knew that if he had just attacked me right there, that, you know, that's probably the only thing that prevented him from really getting violent. But he was triggered, totally. You know, you could see the post-traumatic stress and everything, and all the things that he believed coming to a point, and me being it. But he heard what I said. He'll never escape what I said. It struck a chord with him so deep and profound. He remembers it to this day just as much as I do. But long story short, after all that time, I became a supporter of the military and of the police through Trump, through the fear paradigm, because after I did my DMT trip in Peru, all my ayahuasca sessions every other day for a month, and all the spiritual awakening I did there, you'd think that I'd be fine and freed. In a lot of ways I was, but what happened was all the valves of fear just opened. It flooded out of me. And for a year or two, I was in absolute fear mode. Every day I was focusing on the most heinous, terrible things that humanity is capable of, and of the Dark New World Order and their plans. And I was I was losing sleep. I was a wreck. I was calling everybody I knew. I was sending all these emails. We're all going to die. Everything's totally terrible. my first girlfriend from high school, I hadn't talked to her in years, and I sent her this email talking about, I forget what it was even called, but Jade Helm. I sent her this long email because she was living in San Diego at the time. I was like, dude, I know that we've had our terrible difficulties, and I'm a terrible person for everything that I did, but you can't be there because Jade Helm was supposedly happening there. And if you don't know, Jade Helm was this huge military exercise that was done unconstitutionally, and it was all under UN authority, and it was supposed to be like this big training op for controlling people for civil unrest and all this and this and that. And I basically told her, don't be in San Diego, get out of there. All these terrible things are gonna happen, and totally bought into the fear. And I know that she read it because I was on Facebook, or she at least looked at it. But I had made an agreement with myself that I would just leave her alone, and I would not do certain things, and I would, I never believed that I'd be a supporter of police and military. But the fear, once the fear got a hold of me, I was doing things left and right that I never wanted to do, things that I never believed I could do, such as support someone like Trump, which I remember when I traveled to Europe and Southeast Asia. We were in Thailand on Koh Phi Phi, the same island, or the island next to where they filmed The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. And these people, I think they were from England, they're like, so what do you think of Trump? And at the time, I didn't even know Trump was running, or I didn't know anything about American politics at the time because I wasn't following it. And I was like, Trump is running? I mean, I said, and this is the opinion that I had up until then for a long time, I said, if you believe in the American political system, if you believe that your vote has any count, then you're under mind control. It's all false left-right paradigm. It's all dialectic, Hegelian dialectic. It's false choice. It's like a mother telling her children, because she wants them to eat vegetables. Do you want the carrots or do you want the celery? Or do you want the cucumber? It's a false choice. They're all vegetables, and the child's they have to choose it either way, because the child's like, I don't want any vegetables. All right, or do you want tomatoes? Well, then they're going into the whole thing: is a tomato a vegetable or is it a fruit? I tend to think it's a fruit, but that being aside, it's a false left-right paradigm. So this is what I was trying to explain to them, and I was saying the best choice that you can make is to not choose, because if you choose, you're giving your consent to be ruled. You're giving your consent to the system. If enough people pull out of the system, and then they have no choice but to accept and to say, oh, well, only like 20% of the population is voting. Now some people would say, well, that's just totally irresponsible. How could you do that? You need to vote. If you don't vote, you're not going to get what you want. When is the last time that you voted where you really got what you wanted? They'll make maybe one or two decisions which you kind of like, which are you smooth things over, but the majority of the decisions they make are not good for you or anyone else. If only such a small percentage voted, then they'd have to admit, or at least people would know, like, did you vote? No. Why didn't you vote? Because it's all a sham. Then less and less every year would vote, and it would come to the point where they would just say, all right, we can't have elections anymore because no one's voting. No one has trust in the system. They don't trust us. And people would realize the game. They'd wake up out of their fucking coma, and they'd walk away from the system. And that's what I was explaining to these people when they told me about Trump. And I said, don't believe any of this horseshit. Lo and behold, a year or two later, or a year later, whatever it was, I was voting for Trump, totally in the fear state, totally supporting the police and military, to a complete reversal, 180 from everything that I've been saying and believing for decades. And that's the power of fear. And do not feed into fear, or fear will feed on you. Now, a word from our sponsors, the FDA. Yeah. JK, big time. The thing you need to know about the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, or the Feral Demon Administration, is that they're a pack of rabid wolves, demonically infused rabid wolves that are guarding the coop, the chicken coop. And if you don't get the analogy here, we're the chickens in the coop, okay? And it ain't good. People have put their trust in these snakes, these what other words can we use for an organization, a group of people who make people believe that they're trustworthy and then force them to do things to their bodies and force themselves upon other people's lives without their consent and murder people by the millions over the years? What do you call someone like that? Groups like that. Wait. Pure evil? Yeah, because evil always disguises itself in a nice little costume every single time. And that's what you need. Evil doesn't ever just slither out somewhere and then, I'm evil. Here's all my works and I'm not hiding anything. And no, it has to sheathe itself in a skin of silk and brightly colored lights and a smooth sound while you're standing there hypnotized, sucking the life out of you, and you're just like, the venom makes you think you're enjoying your pain and suffering, but not really. Okay? So, that little analogy aside, let's talk about what the FDA allows. The FDA allows potassium bromate, which is a carcinogen. It's labeled as bromated flour and is outlawed in many countries. They allow artificial sweeteners, which are all carcinogens, such as NutraSweet, all the artificial sweeteners that you see, all of them. Balance, what is that called? I'm gonna think of it here in a second before I even write it, but aspartame. That's what it is. Aspartame is a chemical weapon developed by a chemical weapons company, but it wasn't strong enough to use in the actual weaponized form for instant pain and suffering. So what they did was they said, okay, let's relabel it as aspartame and feed it to the general populace as a silent weapon against them over the decades, so that they will get sick and die and then feed our other corporate entities. It just happens to be owned by patent. The patent is held by Dick Cheney. You remember Dick Cheney, the same guy who owned half the oil fields and the pipelines leading into Iraq and stuff before the war, and the true dark Sith of the Bush administration, the true Jar Jar Binks of the war that continues to this day. Misa Buck! Misa Dick Cheney! And if you don't know that reference, it's saying that Jar Jar Binks from the Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3 was the actual Dark Sith that instigated the entire Clone Wars, the entire Star Wars universe was breathed into existence by Jar Jar Binks. So look into that. It's a fascinating theory, should we say? Okay. So, artificial sweeteners. Yeah, that's what the FDA allows. Total carcinogen. Butylated hydroxyanisole, BHA, keeps fats from going rancid, including the ones inside your body that would need to be, dealt with but aren't, and then they're trapped inside your body. Total carcinogen. Diacetyl, which is a flavoring agent used to create artificial butter flavor. Then there's sodium nitrates. Nitrates are carcinogens and total colon cancer causing. THBQ, found in butter, breads, pastas, ice cream, sauces, oils, and fats, total carcinogen. Then there's dyes, which, the red, green, blue, yellow, the things that basically go through one entire day and looking in the ingredients list of the things that you eat and see how many dyes there are, Dyes are not natural. They're made from oil, from actual crude oil, okay? So it got so bad in Canada that they had to ban red dye. So this is a funny story. McDonald's, in their little yogurt parfaits, they use red dye for the strawberries, the supposed strawberries that are going in there. So Canada had to ban those things from McDonald's. And literally, they had to ban all these different things. So McDonald's had to find another market, so they pumped it more into the United States. And there's plenty of other circumstances like that. So that's what the FDA allows in food in itself, but then also in cosmetics, for instance. Do you know how many toxic substances there are in the average cosmetic? If I told you it was over 10, would you be surprised? Maybe not. What if I told you it was over 80? Would you be surprised? Maybe. But what if I told you it was over 800? How about that? 800 toxins in the average cosmetic. You know, have you ever looked at a woman or a young girl who wears so much cosmetics that she looks like a fake doll? Well, imagine those 800 substances just seeping into her over decades, over a whole lifetime. Not pretty. Alright, so that's what the FDA allows, and I want you to really take that to heart, because it's pure evil, and we need to reject these wolves, these snakeskin, vampire tooth crazies. Okay? There you go.
Just a minute, I know that it'll surface, so let me just hang out for the night. It serves a purpose. It lets me take a break, and I might not think it's worthless in the morning. I can fight it in the morning, I'll rewrite it. Shh, I don't wanna talk right now. Got enough to think about, hits in the clouds. I don't even wanna think right now. Got enough to worry about, gotta keep it down. Got the same thing lingering around my mind. Alarms are gone off, so it's about time. The same thing lingering around my mind.